Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, your Microsoft podcast where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen, the fun one on a Friday. How we doing out there?
Hopefully everyone's doing great. We got another week of news, not as intense as last week, but sure to still make headlines for all of you Microsoft followers. We're going to start off our opening discussion with something pretty big, but also related to last week. We have the ongoing saga of Microsoft versus the CMA and this whole Activision Blizzard deal. We got some new conversations, some talking pieces, an approval, a couple of approvals actually, and we have a staunch position that's being taken. We'll let you know who's taking what and why, and what that means for the future of this whole deal going forward. Then we'll be jumping into our headline section where we'll be talking about Gears 5 coming to the NVIDIA GeForce, what that means for Xbox gamers and NVIDIA GeForce owners. We also have Satya Nadella, finally admitting that AI could displace humans, human jobs. He's always kind of skirted around it, saying it'll create new opportunities, but the stark reality is that for new opportunities, the old ones have to have been probably erased. We'll be talking about Xbox commemorating Global Accessibility Awareness Day as well. Microsoft providing 40 million people across Latin America and Africa with the high-speed internet on a initiative we talked about a long time ago, and we're just circling back because it's still relevant. And then we'll be jumping lastly into how you can use iMessage on your Windows 11 PC, as well as Elon Musk being a troll for Microsoft. With that being said, let's get into the opening discussion, shall we?
Do it.
Yeah, let's go. This week we had the EU come out and approve the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition with caveats. They were basically saying that they wanted Microsoft to have two licensing stipulations put in place, basically allowing any cloud gaming service to have open and fair access to a licensing deal in order to license any of the games that come with the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Meaning, if you are mom and pop cloud gaming service, you'll have the same access to Candy Crush, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, all the big titles to help buoy your service, as well as make it competitive for everybody else. That's kind of what they wanted to do. But just because the EU decided to approve it and some other markets have approved it as well, doesn't mean the CMA is going to back down from their position. I want to say maybe later, or maybe even moments later, I forget the time frame for it, they jumped onto Twitter saying, I am paraphrasing right now, saying, we still stand by what we say, and what Microsoft's trying to do is still anti-competitive. I believe in between this week and last week, they also issued some kind of ultimatum where they said that the deal cannot proceed no matter what happens until they get approval, written consent from the CMA. I don't know the legal jurisdiction on that. We'll get into that in a second. We get to the discussion part of this, but I'm just going to give everyone the facts. So as it stands, the EU has approved. I believe our last approval was today. Who's approving today? China?
Yeah, I believe it was China.
Yes, then we head over to our website, which you can also head over to our website to get the updates. And we have China approving the deal. So the regulatory body approved it. The EU approved it earlier this week. We are heading, barreling into the FTC's date with Microsoft. But as of right now, the only person who's staying out like a sore thumb, the only regulatory body, is the CMA. And again, they have not backed down. With that last bit of information, we will also offer that the MPs for the UK have now come out and questioned the CMA. So it seems like they're wondering why, because again, as we mentioned before, the CMA is a regulatory body, but it's also independent. So I guess the power that be in the UK are wondering why everyone else approving and the CMA is not backing down. With all that being said, what are your thoughts on where we stand with this whole deal?
This thing is getting very twisted. It's like tying a pair of shoes 3 times over. Um, I don't know how much longer Microsoft is going to stay in the game, to be honest. I don't know, how much longer they necessarily intend to fight. I mean, we had heard that our original, closing time was roughly what, a month to 6 weeks away. So I feel like, the CMA has kind of put their foot in the ground and said, look, we're not backing down from our stance on this. And I feel like something we talked about earlier this week in our company chat, that, correct me if I'm wrong, they're wanting some sort of store that says everybody puts their stuff in. You do what you want to do. For example, if you want to use Azure or Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud, for example, to develop your title and host your title, then they feel that you should be able to do that. Whereas right now, Microsoft has the monopoly. If you're going to develop on the Microsoft platform for Xbox, you're basically going to do it the Microsoft way. And coming from somebody with a background in servers and whatnot, I kind of see that. Imagine this. Imagine if Call of Duty, the developers of Call of Duty said, well, we want to be on the Xbox, but we're not going to use the Azure cloud. We're going to go get Amazon or Google Cloud, pick your poison. And they go, they do their development, they house their title, and the title is released, and you're going through the dashboard. Well, I'm going to download Call of Duty. The new version is out. I'm going to download it. Up, you get an error message. But you can download everything else on the Xbox. So what does that tell you? There's an issue possibly with Amazon Cloud. So when you start, or the cloud service being used, when you start divvying out services, it makes the service more unstable. And I kind of see the Microsoft way of doing things. If you're going to be on our platform, you're going to do it our way. It's a security thing. It's a service reliability thing, but I understand that the CMA and some of the others that have, raised concerns are saying, well, this gives Microsoft the monopoly of, the cloud and the gaming too. And I understand that, but I also see it from the service point of view that one service, one platform, everything works the way it should.
Yeah, I mean those are all great facts. Just to give people a little bit more perspective, the scrutiny came from the MPs belonging to the Business and Trade Committee of the CMA's deal. Who questioned CMA's bosses Marcus Bockernick, I believe, and Sarah Cardwell, over the decision to block the merger between Microsoft and Activision. Particularly, MPs expressed concern over how this whole thing was determined and how that affects the UK going forward as a tech place for business. Despite being questioned, Bockernick doubled down on the CMA stance that the deal would weaken competition in the nascent cloud gaming market, and he understands, why people are questioning. Now, to your point about the way that this whole thing is structured, I apologize to anybody who is in the know, but I'm going to pontificate on what I know. The very little that I know is that while Microsoft is asking people to use Azure when they are licensing their particular set of games or whatnot, it doesn't prevent anybody from making ports for other cloud services and putting them on there. Like, the idea is that Microsoft will provide a license to, say, Tencent, who already has whatever cloud service they're using. They're not going to necessarily drop their cloud service just for Azure. What they're going to have to do is develop a port of whatever games that they're having or whatever games they're licensing for that structure as well as Azure. Because the idea is that, as you mentioned, if there's any downtime, if there's any issues, or if there's any updates, not speaking of the negatives, but the positive, there's any updates that Azure does that reduces latency, that, does better pairing for multiplayer, things like that, they want to be able to push that to their games. We're saying that, Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, things like that, will be Microsoft games. They want to be able to control that. And if you have it on a separate platform, say at AWS, and you just push out a big update that latency by, one more millisecond, But AWS doesn't do that, and the game is available through AWS on whatever this cloud service is. You now have two people playing in multiplayer on unfair playing fields. They're not playing equal or evenly. And the same goes for AWS. When it goes down, we already know this, half the internet goes down. But that doesn't mean that Microsoft's cloud service is down. But people will blame them. We mentioned this in the chat. This is the Windows issue, where you buy an Asus laptop, say it's a really, a $300 one, and the drivers go, you blame Microsoft. You're like, oh, Windows sucks. And well, it's not Windows' fault. It's Asus and their drivers. But because Microsoft and Windows is the thing you're interacting with, that's who you blame. And I believe that's what they're trying to prevent from. So, I mean, with all that being said, we have, like you said, there's a foot in the sand. We were discussing probably for an hour what happens, what goes, how does Microsoft proceed? Do they drop the deal completely? Because without the CMA's approval, they threaten their other businesses in the area. This isn't just, all right, well, we'll do the deal and we just won't provide games in the UK. They're saying if you go ahead with the deal, get ready to drop Office, Azure, all of the other software services that you provide in conjunction with these things, security clearances, stuff like that. Get ready to drop all that out of the UK. So this is a big deal because as the MPs who were part of the Business Trade Committee are kind of questioning, it's like, well, if Microsoft is potentially willing to drop the UK over this thing, is the UK prepared to have such a loss? I mean, they're not. Yeah, they can run to Linux and things like that, but this is a whole infrastructure that they're not going to be able to do overnight. So, what do you think? Do they strong arm? Do you think this appeal might work now that people are kind of questioning the CMA and pushing them into a corner? I don't know.
I think eventually you get to a point, and not to repeat what you just said, but you get to a point where, the hard decision has to be made. You've got, most people are approving the deal right now. So is the CMA going to be the one group of people that basically goes against the majority of the world that is saying, okay, we're good with this, or they have set their provisions that they want, and Microsoft is willing to meet them? I picture it as two people standing at the table. There's a steak in the middle of the table, and who's going to take the fork after the steak first? And the CMA is giving the outward appearance of we're strong, we're going to stand. But something tells me that something will be done to possibly get them to back down. Now, is it good enough for Microsoft to keep the deal? We don't know.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting because I think I mentioned this, and again, Arch, I wish everyone could be privy to the chat, but I see that the CMA, while they are righteous in their opinions on what they're doing, they are going to postpone or prolong, I should say, the inevitable. What they're trying to do is have these, I guess, future cloud services that we don't know about, or even the small ones that we do know about, try and live or die on their exclusives. Because what Microsoft is proposing, what the EU drew from Microsoft, is basically saying everyone has access to Call of Duty, no matter who or what service you are. Microsoft can't pick and choose who they want to, help run or earn the market. They're saying everyone has access to it. Microsoft said, okay, fine, you twisted our arm. Everyone has access to the games, not just Call of Duty, because that was the big one. That was what they were making deals for specifically. Now those deals don't even matter because everyone has access to it. If they want to start up a cloud service, so if you want to start up a cloud service tomorrow, you have access to Call of Duty via Microsoft in this deal because the EU forced them to. You would think that'd be what the UK wants, but instead what the UK wants is they want cloud services to be free enough to do whatever they want with whatever service they have. And as you and I discussed, it's cost and resource intensive to host a cloud service, a cloud gaming service. And I knew that Google could do it. They had both. They just didn't have the game chops to keep the deals. Sony is going to subsidize. I mean, they're using Azure for right now. We'll see what what service they use to do it sooner or later with their own version. But they're going to use the gaming portion of it that they already have, a huge one of, to subsidize this, at least early on before it starts making money. Microsoft and AWS have already invested in the enterprise version of this, which is subsidizing the game version of this. I don't know, Tencent, a big company, is subsidizing their game ones through their own advertising and business models for other things. Like, I don't know how many random small cloud gaming services are going to make it on their own without any subsidies. Same thing goes for Ubisoft and Activision. I mean, not Activision, but EA. Like, they have huge gaming libraries. They're leeching money and resources from the gaming titles to subsidize this for a period. Because, I mean, admittedly, Game Pass and xCloud are money sinks right now for Microsoft. Same as Netflix. Netflix dropped money for almost 13 years before they started becoming profitable. For what the CMA is asking, I don't know if any cloud service is going to have the time to do that. They'd have to have one heck of an exclusive that ran for 10 years profitable in order to subsidize these cloud services. But what's going to end up happening is they're going to start dropping by the wayside as they realize server cost and development hours and paying all these studios to run these games is not worth it. And Microsoft and Sony and maybe Nintendo and AWS Luna's their Luna service are just going to start picking these companies up as they go out of business. And then they'll have these titles all to themselves. And they won't have to share with everybody versus forcing Microsoft to at least share the largest library with everybody. So that's the future I see if the CMA continues to get their way.
And I think you're right. And coming from somebody who's in the background as well as yourself, for people that don't know, Google Cloud, Amazon, and Azure as well, it's expensive. It's expensive, folks. And, it's nice. They're all very solid platforms. They've all got their pros and their cons. But to your point, it's expensive to stay online and to meet the demand of gamers to make sure you're pushing your content out. And something we talked about in our chat, again, I wish, people could be privy to, is we talked about things going, back to the way they used to be before you had Google Cloud and Azure and Amazon and all these companies had server rooms with server racks. Well, that's great, but that still comes as an expense because there's bandwidth to pay for, there's hardware to pay for, and then you've got to pay the employees to be there 24/7 to keep things online. So it's going to be very interesting, the cloud providing choice, one that Sony makes, just to see what Sony does when they're ready to go further with theirs. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the end. I'm hoping it goes through. The gamer in me is hoping it goes through. But the business person in me is looking at it going, it might not, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it for now. I'm sure there'll be more information next week. Or, Microsoft may ignore it and just stick to build and saying, hey, here's our cloud, and here's some new Windows stuff as well, maybe some new hardware, who knows. But we're going to move on to our now. I'll let you open the first headline.
All right, I'm going to stay on the same track here for just a minute on this headline because I think it's going to interest some folks. It certainly interests me. We have Gears 5, the popular Gears 5 Xbox title, is coming to NVIDIA GeForce now. In fact, it is already there. It was there as of May the 18th. So, this is one of those deals, one of those 10-year deals that we talked about it and have talked about for a long time. There was a 10-year deal made with NVIDIA to do things with Microsoft titles. So guess what? NVIDIA seems to be one of the first to jump. So if you're a Gears fan and for some reason you're not a PC Game Pass subscriber, you can play Gears 5 right now on NVIDIA GeForce now, and they do have some more titles coming up. Coming up May 25th, we have Deathloop, Grounded, and Pentiment. So it looks like, over time from what we're seeing, these titles from Microsoft are going to ease their way over to NVIDIA GeForce now. I'm a fan of this. This goes back to what Phil Spencer has always said. Play anywhere. I think this is a good thing.
I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to go on to something a little less fun more daunting because, hey, I guess I'm the daunting one now. I don't know. We have AI could cause real displacement of human jobs, says Satya Nadella. Now, as we mentioned at the top, Satya's, at least since they've made a big fuss about ChatGPT, he's always skirted the question, and I believe everyone has some Neil Patel with The Verge and people like Engadget, whoever he's interviewed with, whenever they talk about the potential of jobs being displaced, he's always said that it's, quote, an opportunity to create new jobs. But I guess he's finally said, all right, well, as we're about to watch a slew of jobs get replaced, I might as well be upfront about it. Nadella highlighted the concept of replacement that can occur in the job market as a result of new technologies. Once again, he also emphasized that it has the ability to create new jobs. Quote, I mean, there can be a billion developers. In fact, the world needs a billion developers, says Nadella. So the idea that is actually a democratizing tool to make access to new technology and knowledge easier, simplifying the learning curve, which, is marketing speak for, this is despite the fact that what it's replacing will be more of the, C-level, menial, task-oriented jobs. So while everyone can start to become, a young nascent developer, people who have to do processing stuff like that, they will lose their jobs. So again, they might have the ability to become a developer, figure out how to harness AI, but in the meantime, their jobs can be cut. They'll explain that despite advancements in development, it's still necessary to read, edit, and improve content. He believes that AI will enhance existing jobs and contribute to the creation of new ones. He even suggested that employee salaries could potentially increase as a result of the company's AI initiatives. There have been concerns, obviously, about AI, and I believe Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, a bunch of other, visionary tech visionaries, have gotten together to create some kind of agreement that they've all signed to try and pause AI development for 6 months. It's a dumb idea, in my opinion, because pausing 6 months doesn't change the fact that AI is not sentient, which I believe everyone's kind of conflating. Anyway, moving on from that. Rapid development of AI, Nadella expressed his beliefs that progress is moving in the right direction. He emphasized the importance of humans being involved in the loop rather than being completely replaced. Now, I don't know if any executive who's got a family people would care about that, but at least he's standing on that. We'll see what his thoughts are at Build when he has to discuss how this helps businesses improve, but doesn't optimize the person out of a position. What are your thoughts on the I think we've kind of hinted at the dread of potential job displacement, but what do you think about Nadella thinking that this can create new jobs or more new jobs?
Well, it's going to create more new jobs for people that understand that there's a programming and development and a management part of AI. And for the people that can take these AI engines and these APIs, such as your programmers and whatnot, and can manipulate these things to do specific things for specific businesses. For example, you have an AI that is built for someone in the financial sector. You have one that's built for someone in the advertising sector, and you're using these APIs to build your own. We have to remember that's the purpose of an API, is to be able to have access to build your own. I don't foresee, right now we go to Bing, we use Bing Chat, Bard, or whichever AI engine that you choose, and that's what we do. But as Google mentioned last week in their I/O, they're already reaching out to partners. Instacart was one of them that I recall, where things are being built specifically for Instacart customers. We saw something about fast food restaurants, I believe it was Wendy's, where, there's going to be job loss. I don't want to say there's not going to be. There's going to be. People are going to be replaced because of AI, but I think there will be new jobs developed for people that know how to manage, manipulate, and maintain AI. For example, the internet, when it became popular, I'm sure there was job loss there. You had manual labor versus, what somebody can click and do. Well, then the new jobs were created for people that knew how to manipulate and make better these systems of click and do. We used to mail our bills. We used to walk in and go somewhere and pay our bills. The internet comes along. You can now click and pay those bills. Maybe we needed less bill collectors, there to take our payment or answer our
Oh,
call.
not the poor bill collectors.
Yeah. But I think AI is going to do the same thing. I think, there are going to be some people without a job. I hate it, but the ones created for the ones that know how to manipulate it are going to be equal to the ones that knew how to build websites in the beginning 10, 15 years ago.
Agreed. So get to learning AI and AI prompts. I'm sure there are tons of lessons. I've already seen YouTube videos crop up, people, so get on it.
And I suspect you're going to see this start popping up on college curriculums anytime.
Agreed. Definitely agree. What's our next headline?
Let's see. We're going to stay on the Xbox train for just a minute. This particular headline kind of means a little something to me. Xbox has commemorated Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And before I go any further, I want to say that I commend Xbox for everything they're doing for people with disabilities and how they're making products customized for people with disabilities. So those with disabilities get to compete. So Global Accessibility Awareness Day happens to be a special date that is in place to focus on digital access and inclusion for more than 1 billion people that live with some sort of disability or impairment. So basically what Microsoft has been doing, and you may have noticed this in some of your games, hate to bring the title up again, but I noticed it when I installed Call of Duty on a new Xbox earlier this week. You get the prompt there, whether you're disabled or not. What can we do to make this game more accessible? Do you need, your game controller to be less sensitive? Do you need better auto aiming? Do you need, brighter text to read? And, Microsoft debuted this 7 months ago because I remember covering it on our website. And now they're coming back with better support pages for Xbox.com, better accessibility menus, both for the Xbox app and PC app. So if you've got a disability, a lot of things sometimes you can't participate in or you have to modify to participate in. It's nice to see a company jump out there and say, hey, we're going to do what we can to make sure you get to participate and enjoy our systems and titles. So I'm a fan. I look forward to seeing more of what Microsoft's going to do. And I hope that other companies that are watching how successful this is and how game developers are implementing it, and we start seeing other stuff like this.
Yeah, congratulations. Microsoft's Airband initiative to provide high-speed internet access to 40 million people across Latin America and Africa. I believe Microsoft, we wrote about this back in 2016. They launched it in 2017. This is back when I believe Facebook was throwing drones in the sky and Google was using balloons and stuff like that. It was basically an initiative by people to get rural areas mostly access to decent internet. I believe the headlines go, in 2017, Microsoft launched the Airband Initiative, a program designed to promote internet connectivity across rural areas in the U.S. with the objective of expanding internationally and helping 40 million people gain access to high-speed internet. Earlier this week, Microsoft announced it's expanded its Airband partnerships that are in place to help the company deliver on its promise to connect 40 million people across Latin America and Africa to fast, reliable internet. The partnership, I believe, covers the countries of Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Guatemala, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Uganda. Marked some of the most significant progress in their commitment to extend high-speed internet access to 250 million people living in unserved and underserved areas around the world, including 100 million people in Africa. Last year in December, Microsoft partnered with Viasat, a global communications company, to help provide internet access to 10 million people around the globe. Africa. So they're, on chart to hit their numbers. I think they said, including 100 million people that they've already gotten, they plan to get 100 more by the end of 2025 in Africa. There's better internet connectivity across Latin America. Latin America and Africa in rural areas will help these, people get better placed jobs, more, higher income jobs, more desired technological jobs, as you were mentioning. Maybe this next wave of people who get access to the internet jump straight on the AI bandwagon and AI prompt stuff, and they start contributing to being these, mini developers or AI wranglers and things like that. These are the jobs that Microsoft wants to try and help enable by giving people access. Now, I believe the initiative was supposed to be using white noise was their way to do it versus putting a balloon in the sky or a drone or whatnot. But I think you can speak on this a little more eloquently.
Well, the Microsoft Airband program is a tremendous program. I have participated in the program with a local ISP here, and to give somebody a brief background on what it is, you go to the Microsoft Airband website. I don't have that right here handy, but you can Bing it or Google it, whatever your choice, and look it up. You basically fill out a form and they verify your business information, and then you will get a list of some of the new broadband technologies out there, as well as some of the existing. For example, what you're referring to there is something called TV white space. And basically what TV white space is if we all remember the analog TV days when you had the antennas on top of your house, those airwaves have been replaced, as we know, with digital television, and the analog airwaves have now been used or repurposed for broadband internet access. I've got a picture of one of the units in the next room. Maybe I'll take a picture and we can include it with the podcast or something. But what you do is when you fill out your form, you pick what you want, what type of technology you want. Now, Microsoft does kind of lock you into what technology you can use. They're not going to let you use something that's 10 years old. You have to have some money to spend still, but they will heavily discount your investment. And when I say heavily, 50, 75, 80% on some things. So you take the infrastructure I'm referring to was roughly 30 grand with the Microsoft Airband program. I believe this company saw their investment knocked down to 8 grand. And then you have something that, one, is reliable, and you can then make future purchases. This is the good part. You can make future purchases in the Airband program and still get those Airband discounts. So for example, if you say, look, in one of these countries, we want to set up 50 people. Well, your initial order is to set up 50 people with reliable internet access. Microsoft doesn't come back and say, after 50 people, those discounts are over. You better have your money and be ready to, pay full price. No, you can come back and make further purchases under the Airband discounts. That's where Microsoft wins, and it's an end-to-end service. If you need an internet provider someplace to provide service, Microsoft in the Airband program has partnerships, and it's you couldn't ask Microsoft to be any more simplistic about it. There's not any hoops to jump through. Fill out the paperwork, get your business verified. All they want to do is verify that they have some contact information to get a hold of you, get yourself added to their newsletter, and start clicking the links of what you want to purchase. That's it, folks. They make it easy. So if somebody's out there in a foreign country or anywhere and saying, look, we need some reliable internet access, punch up that Airband program. There just might be something out there you can use.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Everyone follow up on that. I'm going to just jump ahead real quick, ahead of the last headline, because I feel like we can wrap it up with yours. And mine's just a minor one, but for people who are interested, you can now use iMessage on your Windows 11 PC. Microsoft started rolling out the update earlier this week to all Windows 11 customers in 39 languages across 85 countries in phased rollouts. I believe that started actually at the beginning of this month. The iPhone support for phone link should be starting, I believe, this week, and should be going out to 85 countries for all Windows 11 users for the next few weeks or so. There are a lot of caveats to this one.
Yes.
This means that Windows 11 customers can now send and receive messages via iMessage, make and receive calls, and check notifications from any app installed on on their iPhones directly from the Windows PC. But it's apparent that the capability of the link your iPhone to Windows PC has been, while it's been much anticipated, there are a lot of things that you should be ready for. For instance, the update doesn't support group messaging to one-on-one chats. What's more, users won't be allowed to send messages, send images, audio, or video. So you get about a third of the functionality of iMessage on your PC. So basically, if you are someone who is, I zoned in, make sure that you're not getting any emergency messages or any, text messages to kind of change the date on meetings, stuff like that. This is what this functionality is used for as of right now. Additionally, the phone link won't be able to tell a normal text message apart from an iMessage. So, God be with you. Everything's going to be a green bubble, apparently.
Yep.
The chat bubbles won't be categorized into two green chat bubbles representing normal text messages and blue chat bubbles representing iMessages. So, if you're okay with green message for everything, go ahead and use this. Moreover, it'll prove impossible to check your chat history, which is also, I guess, a big thing. Obviously, people want to be able to reference something. It's like, if you have a significant other and they're referencing something that you guys talked about maybe a week ago, and you won't have visibility on that, at least on your PC. You can always go to your phone. Phone link will only show your messages that you sent and received while you were using it. We'd like to invite people to kind of give us their thoughts and opinions if you're trying it out, because, like I said, it's kind of like the Android App Store that Microsoft brought to Windows 11. It's nice to have it as a check mark. Functionally speaking, I don't know if it's all that great for people to use. So hopefully they can be able to improve it. Apple lets down some of those guards a little bit. We can get some more functionality out of it. Until then, give it a shot. Let us know your thoughts.
It's better than what we have. I mean, how many years have people been begging for a way to, and there's all kinds of hacks and ways around out there and an app to do this. I've even seen folks renting Mac Minis in a data center to log into on their PC to be able to send a simple text message from their PC. Now, I've got an article coming up on Phone Link where I'm going to discuss some of the things that I do daily on Phone Link. Phone Link plays a big role in my workflow, but I'm going to have to be blunt, folks. Remember, there's the Microsoft-Samsung partnership. That's where you get all the features of Phone Link. You don't even get all the features on a Google Pixel. So if you're looking at that Google Pixel Fold that was just announced, you'll get most of the features, but you're not going to get all of them. So be aware. And what we're doing here with iMessage, baby steps. It took us 10 years to be able to send a message from a Windows device to an iPhone. Baby steps. Maybe in 10 more years, we'll get the rest of the features.
Be able to send a picture, finally. What's our last one? What's our last headline?
Let's see. We got one more here. Let's see what we have. Guess what, folks? Microsoft and Elon Musk. Big surprise here, right? According to headlines, we have Elon Musk lawyer has finally sent that magical letter to Microsoft and says, naughty, naughty, naughty. Microsoft has received a letter from Elon Musk's personal lawyer, Alex Spiro, accusing the company of violating Twitter's developer agreement. Now, basically what they're saying here is, I believe it's 6 apps. We don't know which 6 apps they are that Microsoft did not pay to access the API and was able to get this data from Twitter and manipulate it without paying for it, without permission. Now, just to give people some background, we have mentioned this on our site. We have mentioned this in our podcast in the past. The API up until the time of Elon taking over Twitter was free. So what Elon is trying to say here is there was a window in there where Microsoft was still accessing data. Microsoft last month says, look, we have turned off all Twitter access. Well, Elon is saying, well, you still had some access during the time of it was supposed to be paid for. So Microsoft says they will respond accordingly. And they have until June 7th, I do believe, to respond to Elon's request. And Elon says this may take a step further now.
Wow.
I really want to take this seriously, but part of me wants to chuckle as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he can get a settlement out of him for $44 billion, he might.
That's where I was going
with it. His whole Twitter acquisition. I feel like there might be a settlement on board. I don't think it's going to be for that price, just because Microsoft doesn't want to have to be dragged through a PR mudslide on this whole deal. If in fact they had violated, if they didn't, who knows? Elon might be on the hook for even more money because of this whole Twitter deal. With that being said, we want to thank everyone for joining us for another week of news. We will be telling you where to find us, and it happens to be on that Twitter site as well. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm over there, David PAJ_1978, and my feed is tech related, but in the Twitter world, when you scroll the Twitter feeds, there's no telling what you might find.
Yeah, you can find me at Mindhead1. My feed is also tech related, but I have some thoughts and opinions on comics and movies and things like that as well. So if you want just a bit of a reprieve from all the tech news, you can check that out as well. Like I said, thank you for joining us. We hope that we have been informative and entertaining, and that you come back next week for more information. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, folks. We'll see you next week.